everybody little tapping with the pot with Tigmatic.
Y'all tune into the Pop Podcast. And guess what? There's an episode of
and you are tuned into the Pot Podcast.
And with the Pop Podcast with my boy Tigmatic. You hear me? It's going down.
To follow the Pot Podcast with Tigmatic.
That's that number one.
That's that number one.
Like me and make you king of the place. Can't ride my way, motherfucker, give me space. I'm out here chasing mugger and you niggas can't relate. All the nigga need is Benjamin Grant, Jackson and Lincoln. And bullshit walks and money talks like that's sinking. Niggas will play your friends just to get you high and set you up for a piece of the pie. But I'm knowing the vibes. These bitches will gas you up with the lies. Bust it open for burger, she twerking all on the live. Niggas is envious, I can see the shit in their eyes. Praying on my downfall, keep on waiting on my demise. But know that I'ma do me. And tell these haters it's a rap, that's cool G. The money been the only thing that ever moved me. That's why I'm riding on you niggas like a true king. Hater.
I don't need no friends, I don't need no friends. I got Benjamin, I got Benjamin. That president, hey yeah. Got that president, hey yeah. I say I don't need no friends, I don't need no friends.
Fuck new friends, I don't need them. No new niggas in my circle, you a square, I can see it. Build it
chasing this money, gotta keep it. Dead presidents bury at a level haters can't reach it. I can make it rain, bruh, I can change a season. Sleeping on fuck niggas, not me, never that. Same old team breaking bread from a duffel bag. Bitches smelling money and these hoes keep on coming back. Swerving cause I see the plot. Prime keep the heater caught. Praying on my knees in the past, niggas seen a lot. Niggas do you dirty, they can't stand when you see the top. Haters be a burden, trying to cash in when it's hot. Even though I'm keeping money, never will I sleep on God. Die with my niggas, cause my nigga Franklin down the ride. Nigga peep the vibe, broke niggas stay the same. Stay with my ones, nigga, I changed the game.
I don't need no friends, I don't need no friends. I got Benjamin, I got Benjamin. The president, hey yeah, got that president, hey yeah. Say I don't need no friends, I don't need no friends.
We coming in from the door, man, on folks them. Y'all already know, cuz. Yeah, 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 hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, I rock all this white like I'm godly. Sushi gon' come with wasabi. Fresh off the steps of the porch. I walk out, get in a Porsche. Know that I'm using the force. Know that I mastered the course. Known as the plug and the source. Haters, they feeling remorse. This for my dogs in court. That's facing the judge and the jury. My brother, he made it in sports. And that's why he rock all that jewelry. She can remember me now. Know that my vision is blurry. I got these racks on me now. Know that the money done cured me. Know that I'm lit in my city. Know that I'm hot. Know that we poppin', man. Everybody chasing that cloud. Running their mouth. Know I really feed the game. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hold up. We on the beaches and right off the coast. Down here in Florida, we doing the most. The hustle on South Beach is like a LeBron. You call it a pound and we call it a bomb. We at the lick and I'm working with chicken. Shout out my nigga from Memphis, they chicken. For my dog and themselves, know I know that they listening. Yeah, I'm on a new level just like I'm Hendrix. Straight from the gutter, we come from the trenches. We ball on these niggas, they sit on the bench. They using the style and I swear I ain't lending. We pushing the P and the P is for profit. They watching and listening, now look how they copy. They hate and respect it, but gotta acknowledge me. Know that a nigga be doing a lot. Know that I'm lit in my city. Know that I'm hot. Know that we poppin', man. Everybody chasing that cloud, running their mouth. Know I really feed the game.
Yo, what's up, y'all? You're now tuned into another rendition of the Pop Podcast with Tigmatic. Hey, listen, it's Wednesday, it's early, we here. It will be another episode at the regular scheduled time tonight. But listen, we doing a little something different because I will be going over in LA for a few days, so I won't be here. So I won't be running them like I usually do. It'll be some special edition type of episodes for y'all. But listen, I have my guest. This is my guy. This is my friend. This is my business partner. We are here. We're moving and booming today. Listen, he's a funny guy. Very charismatic. And listen, he about his business, and we're going to get into it. He is also the founder of CallywoodTV. But before we get into that, this episode of the Pop Podcast with Tigmatic was brought to you by CallywoodTV, Hollywood Music, Hollywood Radio, Dollar Radio, and Going in radio. We here. Listen, y'all. But like I said, my guy is here. So without further ado, I give you the one, the only Calvin Parker Jr., aka Callywood. Let's get it moving.
What's up? What's up? How you doing? How y'all
What's up with the
living?
what's up, my guy?
What's going on, man? How you doing? How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, I'm good. Welcome to the podcast with Tigmatic. I know it's a lot to say.
Yeah. That's a mouthful. Try to say that 5 times fast.
Oh, I know. I seen you were struggling with it when you made the clip, and I think was that Nikki taping?
Yeah, it was Nikki taking
yeah, she was laughing at it.
Podcast, man. Yeah, it is a mouthful, man. Especially when you're like in flow and you're trying to get, you do radio, you do shows, you're hype, you're trying to keep the flow going and everything, and you stumble, and you got to keep going, keep moving.
Yes, sir. But hey, man, you already know how I do. So the floor is yours. Introduce yourself formally, even though I just introduced you.
I saw that, man. What's up, y'all? How y'all doing? My name is Calvin Parker Jr., aka CALLYWOOD. Yes, I'm the founder of CALLYWOOD Music. And for those that don't know, we are a media platform, is the easiest way I can put it. We, of course, we have 2 radio stations, 2 internet-based radio stations, Callywood Radio, Callywood Radio X. We also have a streaming TV channel, CallywoodTV, where you can find podcast with Tigmatic. Got to get a shameless plug in there for you, bro. And then, of course, we also do events around the Colorado area. And we're all about the independent music scene. So we like to showcase independent music. A lot of the music you hear, of course, are from Colorado artists because that's my hometown, the Box State. But we do have music from artists from 7 different countries. And we have a 24/7 radio station, Callywood Radio, of course, to promote it. So yeah, man, y'all tune in. CallywoodMusic.com is where you can find everything. And that's my spiel. That's my elevator pitch.
Hey, man, I want to say welcome again, and you definitely just laid it down, told them what it is. So now they know. And if they don't know, go on the platform and check it out. It's where you can find the Pop Podcast, like Calvin said. And listen, we here. And he is here. So we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about mental health and all that. Mental Health Awareness Month is here upon us. So we're going to get into it, y'all.
Let's do it.
All right. So tell the people where you're originally from, man.
Born and raised, man, right here in Colorado. Born right down the way from Denver, Colorado Springs. For those that aren't familiar, it's about an hour south of Denver. Parents moved us up here when I was about 2. My mom and dad split, so my stepdad and real mom raised me. And thank God we lived for those that don't know Colorado Springs or Denver, we were in kind of a rough area. So they want to kind of get us out of that mess. So they moved us up here to Denver. So we've been up here ever since. With the exception of 6 years I lived in LA while I was doing the acting thing. That's another story,
We're going to get into that in a bit. We got time.
Yeah, man, representing the Box State most definitely is my home. I do rep California, of course, a little bit too, because that's kind of a second home to me. But yeah, it's all about Colorado. So let me say this. Colorado's closed. If you've been here visiting, that's cool, but don't stay. No more people. I got to put that out there. So Tigmatic, I know you wanted to come through while you were out in Cali and probably won't make it, but you're more than welcome to visit. Just when you come and visit, and I know you're going to love it, you're not allowed to come move here. Too many people, man.
Right, so break it down a bit. Tell us what Colorado is like. Like, break it down for the people, for those that never been,
Yeah. If you've never been, the first thing you'll notice when you come here is the weather is bipolar, most definitely. You could be wearing snow boots and shorts in the same day. I kid you not. I could wake up to snow, and by the end of the day, it's sunny and warm, or vice versa. We've had days where it's 80 degrees and then 4 inches of snow the next day. So the weather is definitely kind of crazy, but we get all the seasons though. Like right now, it's summer, so it's 90 degrees out. We had it as cold as 60 degrees last week, and wearing, a little coat, not heavy coat, but a little coat and some shoes and everything. Now I'm in shorts and flip-flops. So seasons are kind of crazy, but summer right now, we have a beautiful fall. That's probably summer's my favorite. Fall is definitely my second favorite. For those that don't have any area where you get, autumn where trees turn different colors. We have aspens that are amazing here that turn different colors. Winter has been kind of mild. When you grew up here, winters were hard, but with this climate, with everything going on with the climate, it's been kind of crazy. Our summers have been our winters have been mild, and spring is always rainy. So that's the nice things we get every season, but then it's beautiful here. Like we that live here and grew up here, we don't take advantage enough of the mountains. You know what I mean? Like people come from other states, they come to visit and they're just in awe of the Rocky Mountains. Kind of like how I'm in awe when I go to the beach. The beach is something I don't see every day, right? So when I see it, I'm like, man, this is beautiful. And people do that when they come here. They're like, man, those Rocky Mountains. I'm like, yeah, they're cool. But it's beautiful if you love outdoors, which I do. It's a great place to visit, definitely to live. Art, culture, community, music. A lot of people don't know this, but we got an amazing music scene here. We got a really good Indian music scene. And then, of course, good culture, community, food, art, sports, of course, Nuggets, Broncos, Avs, and Rockies, which we don't talk about. So, yeah, it's all encompassing. We were the first to legalize weed back in 2012. So that's when people really started taking notice of Colorado. It was before then. You can get around town in 25 minutes, half hour, no more. Like little mini LA. It's crazy, but it's a nice place. I highly recommend visiting if you've never been. That's dope.
You mentioned those Broncos. I just want to throw it out there. I'm Team Eagles over here.
That's all right. That's right. I do like Hurts. He's cool. Yeah. So Philly, and I like the Kelseys, of course. So I was rooting for y'all. There's just certain things. If you're a Denver fan, there's just certain teams you can't mess with. The Raiders, that's KC. If you're a KC or Raiders fan, we can't talk no more. We can't be friends, bro. We can't be friends. But you're a Philly fan, I understand now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you watch it. We're big fans of. Me and my wife both play soccer growing up, so we watch Welcome to Wrexham. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Rob McElhaney, he's from Philly and just a huge Philly fan. He's one of the co-owners of the soccer team. Him and Ryan Reynolds, from Deadpool.
Yeah.
So I get to see a lot of hear a lot about the Philly from that show.
Yeah, I'm Team Philly everything. Sixers, Eagles, Flyers, Phantoms. Liberty, the soccer team, everything. I don't really watch soccer like that, but if they from Philly, I support it.
You support it.
That's home, man.
Rep your hometown. That's how we do. Rep your hometown.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, how did your upbringing shape your passion for music, culture, and storytelling?
I'm sorry, repeat that. I kind of cut out. What was that?
How did your upbringing shape your passion for music, culture, and storytelling?
Storytelling. Oh man, yeah. At a young age, I was surrounded by music. My family was not like musically inclined, so to speak, like play instruments, with the exception of my granddad, who I never met. He was a piano jazz player, but I never met him. He passed before I could remember him. But growing up, always music in the household. My real dad loved like old school R&B, and then definitely like 50s and 60s. He was a huge Mustang fan, so he always had Mustangs when I was growing up. And so like Mustang Sally is just something that runs through my mind when I think and talk about my real dad, because back then in the 70s, it wasn't this whole safe culture, you know what I mean? So I was 2-3 years old, hanging in my diaper. I'd be in the passenger seat with a seatbelt around me and standing up, and I could remember the top coming back and him just jamming out tunes, blaring tunes of old school, like your 50s, 60s, 70s, just amazing music back then, from the Platters to the Commodores to Earth, Wind and Fire to every anything soulful back then. So that is one of my earliest memories of music. And then, of course, my mom was huge into like 70s and 80s R&B and soulful, especially in the 80s, Lionel Richie, of course, Anita Baker, that kind of music. Luther Vandross. So she always would be getting ready in the morning, listening to that. And then, I had cousins who were a little bit older that lived in the Springs. So we always used to visit a while. So 5-6 years older than me. So they always had the new stuff. They always had the new 45s. You know what I mean? So we'd be in the basement and then just playing, spinning records. I'm talking back like late 70s, early 80s. I was born in 72. So around like early 80s, I'm 8, 9, 10 in the early 80s, and
listen,
so
folks,
14, 15, and they've got the music, you know what I mean? So we'd be down in their basement and they'd be jamming. So that's where I heard a lot of new music, man. I got into it. And then, of course, in the mid 80s, became a B-boy. I was one of the original B-boys, had a team, had a crew.
You could dance, huh?
Yeah, man. We should get it
I
in.
got a little pop block in me.
You got a little pop block in you?
Yeah.
I was
in a little dance group back in the day.
You did, yeah.
But I want to say something, because you threw something out there for the younger generation that watch 45s or vinyls, but small edition vinyls. They were like this big.
Yep.
And they would play on record players as well.
Yeah, usually singles, maybe sometimes one or two. Then, of course, you got your B-side. As you see over here, I got a nice vinyl collection. We got some old school stuff like that, but I ain't gonna get into all that. But yeah, they had a lot of different 45s and would just play songs and
pull some out real quick. Show the people. Just pull one or two out, just to show them, how you get down.
Bam! What y'all know about that right there?
Okay, what's that right there?
Best of the 60s right here. So I guess it's like old school right here.
Oh, that's old school for real.
Yeah, and then what do we got? What's another good one that people might not know that I might have that's good here? Love and Gold. There we go. There it is.
Miles Davis. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You definitely got some swag with it, my guy.
Yes. But not just that, I listen to, I don't know, people even know about that. People don't even know what that is.
Air Supply?
It's some Air Supply right there.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's enough of that, though. From our collection, we spread around to some of our clients here.
There can be some places to sample from.
Yeah. Where are we? Oh yeah. So yeah, we're kind of talking about 45s and all that fun stuff. So I was just surrounded by music in that terms. And then, like I said, being a B-boy in the 80s. And then when we became of age, we spent a lot of time clubbing. I was a club dancer. And then even in LA, my first couple years in LA in the early 2K, I did a few MTV shows. For those that remember Cisco Shakedown, remember Cisco from Drew Hill?
Yeah.
He had a series called the Cisco Shakedown that was an MTV show, and they filmed it out in Malibu in this mansion they rented out. And it's basically just the backyard and the pool and area. And it was like a contest show where everybody would come, we would dance, you get picked. If you get picked, then you got to be in the top 6, and you did a choreographed routine that they teach you like within 20 minutes. And so you're basically trying to become the winner of the show, of that particular show. And they had a lot of good choreographers back in the day that did a lot of music videos. Like their Pink was one of the guest hosts. Tyrese was one of the guest hosts. And then they had a lot of choreographers that were really famous back in those early 2K days that did music videos. So we did that. So anyways, yeah, long story short, I've always been dancing and moving and shaking or something involved with music up until now. And then all of a sudden, the whole acting thing, not to get into that. I don't know if you want to talk about that yet, but.
No, we can, because that was actually going to be my next question. So when did you get into wanting to act? You went from dance to doing some dance shows and things like that.
Yeah.
When did you decide you wanted to be an actor? So break it down.
Crazy story. So I was a freshman at our state college here. I went to what's called Metro State. It's like downtown Denver here. It's a state university now, but back then it was just state college. And, junior high school, as we all were in that awkward age, I I was really afraid of talking in front of groups, like when I have to give book reports or speeches or anything like that. I just become real flustered and anxiety would set in. And, no matter how much I prepped and studied and note cards and everything, I just lose it. You know what I mean? Just freeze up and can't remember and just start blah, 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 So come my freshman year of college, I'm like, all right, this is going to be different this year. You know what I mean? I'm grown. It's my first year of college. I'm 19 now. Got this. And so I took speech class specifically to help me get over that fear of speaking in public or in front of groups of people. And, same kind of thing. I was very studious, somewhat studious. And I studied note cards, practice it and bombed badly my first maybe 3 or 4 speeches. I'm like, I'm gonna flunk this class.
Oh.
What's up?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I asked the speech professor, some tips and what can I do to help out. He's like, he gave me some few tips. He's like, you might try acting class. You might try some acting classes. I'm like, all right, I don't want to fail this class, so I'm willing to try anything. So I went down to one of our local agencies and got into some acting classes and fell in love with it, man. I was just like, oh yeah, I like this. So that was back in 92, my first year of college. I took a year off and then I graduated in 91, started college in 92 and just fell in love with it. And so I went and got an agent that was here in Colorado. I did local work here in Colorado in the 90s. It was mainly like industrial, like those McDonald's things, like those training videos and stuff like that. We didn't have what we have today. So it was a lot of that and a lot of like commercials, those furniture commercials where you see people walking around and stuff. And then I did a lot of student films for Metro and DU and CU. So whatever I could to act. And then my agent started in the late 90s, what was called a Hollywood showcase. So you would prep a monologue, dialogue, of course, some work, and Hollywood agents would come out and you would perform in front of them. And Tuesdays, they were looking for untapped talent sources. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was cool. So I did one in like 98 and got some really good feedback and worked on a lot of good stuff for a year, and did one in 99 and got picked up by an agent. Moved out to LA in January of 2000. Yeah. And had a little run out there. So from 92 to about 2004-ish, I was pursuing an acting career out in LA. Got a few good gigs as more of a commercial actor. Did a lot of extra work. Met a lot of cool people. People always ask, like, who did you work with? And of course, not working with, but as an extra, that's how you learn the business. Is like, it's almost like being an intern, like in radio or a studio, you know what I mean? Like if you're trying to do engineer, you intern. So for acting, they had specific agents, organizations out there that you become an extra, and you would call the line every day and it would tell you what work was available that fit your character or whatever. And you would say yes or no. And that's how you become extra, like on TV sets or movie sets. So I got to do a lot of cool shows. I did one with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz, not well-known movie. It was called
Is it Night and Day?
What's that?
Is it Night and Day?
No, Night and Day. Oh no, that was a good one. That's a classic. No, this was called Vanilla Sky. And
that was a banger.
Yeah. Tom Cruise in it, Cameron Diaz and Jason Lee, I believe it was. Coolest job, people ask this, so I'm just get it out there. The coolest gig I ever did is I got to play a chimpanzee in Planet of the Apes, the remake, the Mark Wahlberg one. So that was pretty dope. Yeah, we got to go to Sony Studios and we learned how to be apes and chimps for two. I'm a small guy. I'm 5'5", right? So I'm not a big guy. So they classify you by your size. So you got the apes, you got the gorillas, and you got chimpanzees were about my size. So
right.
And we were on the lot at Sony Studios for 2 days, getting paid for 10-hour days to learn how to be, apes. We got to learn how to quadruped. For those that aren't familiar, that's how apes and gorillas and everybody, they walk on all fours. It's called quadrupeding. So
right.
We did a lot of that. How to learn pickup tools, just how to move in like an ape. You know what I mean? They brought in professionals, just like if you were learning stunts, they bring those guys in, and taught us that. And then we got fitted for our costumes. Our mouths didn't move, of course, since we weren't main characters, but it was dope. It was amazing to walk in a scene if you've ever seen the movie, for those that have, and when they first get captured, when Mark Wahlberg first gets captured and taken to like the ape city, that's the scenes that we were in. So it's pretty dope. It's crazy to walk on this big, huge studio, and it just looks like an outdoor jungle. It's crazy. It's really cool. Yeah. So,
hey man, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. And to be in that movie, that'll go down in history. And plus, the apes are like the most pivotal parts of the film for real. You know, even small little parts of it. It's really about what the apes are doing in the whole movie. So that's cool.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's really neat. And, got to meet Tim Roth, of course, Michael Clark Duncan. May he rest in peace.
Rest in
peace. Didn't get to meet Mark Wahlberg. Like? What's that?
What was he like?
Oh, big old teddy bear, just joyful. He was very entertaining, very cool, very down to earth. Big, just, he's a big guy. And just
huge.
Me being 5 day. But yeah, very cool. And met a few of the other ones. Didn't get to meet Mark Wahlberg, but we were told when we got on set, this is like towards the beginning of his acting career, where he's starting to get bigger. And we were told, whatever you do not call him Marky Mark. So those that are familiar and know
you can't do that.
Can't do that. Don't do that, man. So yeah, unfortunately didn't get to meet him though. But he seemed like a cool guy from just we're watching him on set. Pretty cool. And I gotta say this part though, if go back and watch the movie, one of the coolest things, I'm not in this scene, but we got to go, they invited some of us to go out to the desert scenes. So at the very end of the movie where they do the big war, I don't know if you remember the scene where they go to the spaceship, the crashed spaceship. Right. And the apes are attacking and you see like layers of them. You see the ones like on horses, you see these ones like running, and then you see like a bunch of them quadrupeding and they're going just as fast as the horses are. And you're like, wow, that is crazy how they're doing that. What they did is they had this out in the desert, they had this ridge of sand that came up like this. So everybody's running and horses here. And then over this ridge, there's a truck moving with a big flatbed, a couple of them, like conveyor belt flatbed. And the guys are on there and they're quadrupeding as the truck's moving, which is making it look just like they're going as fast as everybody else. It's just crazy, some of the cool stuff they do and for special effects. So yeah. It's a few stuff.
That's cool, man. That's
conveyor belt
that you did that.
Yeah. So yeah, I got a few cool stories from my acting days, and then I was coming towards the end of it in like 2004, wondering what it would. Well, here's how it happened. I
was going to ask you. Let me ask you.
Okay.
What made you stop acting? Like, what was it that made you stop? Yeah.
So me and my wife, we were ready to have kids in like late 2004. So we're living in LA, we're having a ball, we're not single, but we're no kids, and we're living the Hollywood life, man. We were going to Hollywood parties. The agent I had, we get to go to a lot of mixers, meet a lot of cool up and coming people. Like Michael Rappaport was one of my agent's clients, and I don't know if anybody watches The Big Bang Theory, but the big guy, I forget his name in it, but he was one of our clients, the big goofy guy that was in a few seasons. But anyways, long story short, so we were just having fun, living the Hollywood life, doing what we wanted to do, working, chilling. And, around 2004, we're like, all right, I think we're ready to have kids. And I was kind of like, I was working for AT&T, like a AT&T dealer at the time. And it's like, okay, well, the acting thing is not consistent. So what else do I like? And I had some friends who worked in radio out there, worked for like K-Rock and Power 106. And I always thought it was cool. I'd go to a few events and I was like, man, these guys get to hang out, listen to music. They get to meet cool, artists and such. And I was like, that's a pretty cool gig. I think I might look into that. So I was deciding in early 2005. This is when we found out we had twins. I have, by the way, let me print that. I have, they're 19 now, but we found out we had twins on the way in early 2005. So I'm like, all right, I really got to find something that pays the bills. And
right.
So like, all right, what do I like doing? I was like, okay, that's one aspect I like, how these guys are doing the radio thing. And being big into music, I was always intrigued by the studios out there. So I was like, all right, maybe an audio engineer. So I couldn't decide. So I went back to school for both. So I am a certified audio engineer. And then, of course, radio. I've been working in radio now, going on my 20th year, because I started my first internship in 2005. So yeah, I couldn't decide on either of them. So I went back to school for both. And yeah, man, I've enjoyed these last 20 years. I don't do as much music side audio engineer. I'm more of like an audio engineer for radio and jingles and that kind of thing. And yeah, that's kind of how I went from acting to radio. It was just come to Jesus moment. It's like, all right, I got to find a career, like something a little more steady than acting. But I've always been very creative, you know. So
that's pretty dope. So who in your family or early life inspired you to find your voice? Who was that person?
Oh man, definitely my stepdad. He was a cool cat. My real dad was what I'd call a pimp. Not pimp in the words of a pimp, but just cool. That's where I get my swag from, my coolness. It was definitely my real dad, but my stepdad, yeah, he pushed me to be better. You know, for those shout out to the real stepdads out there who take care of business. And you know, I got in a lot of trouble. I was very rambunctious. Like I said, I'm very creative, but not knowing how to express myself creatively in my maybe early teen years. You know, I was wild. I would definitely push the limits. Nothing like hurting people crazy, but I did a lot. Yeah. I almost had to go to military school. Almost had to go move in with my dad. Just crazy. I was very what we call ornery, rambunctious, and getting in trouble. You know, no repercussions in my head, no accountability, no, you know, a lot of stuff that teens do.
So at that time when you was a teenager, did you ever felt like you wasn't seen or heard, or did you feel overlooked? Or did you?
No,
you found your way.
I felt under a microscope, but that's more so on my doing a lot of the time for some of the stupid stuff I did. Yeah. No, I don't think overlooked. I mean, other than like sports, I did play sports in high school, which I think definitely helped. Soccer and track.
Okay.
I love track, love to run. I still run.
So you can run.
Yeah, and then soccer. I was big on soccer in high school. Volleyball. Volleyball I've played since I was 14. Love volleyball. So those are my three. But that definitely helped release some of the creative energy because, yeah, you know, idle hands are the devil's playground. So in my early teens, like say 7th, 8th, 9th grade, 7th, 8th grade, yeah, you know, I could definitely get into some trouble.
Okay.
But not overlooked, you know, other than sports and parents not being able to come to like games or track meets. And I can't fault them for that because they have to work full time. You know, it's not like my other friends' parents who have a stay-at-home mom or dad who can get off and do that. So, you know, I catch a lot of rides with friends, and yeah, that kind of bothered me sometimes that they couldn't come to Saturday sports when they were home. But I get it. You work all week. Sometimes they work Saturdays too. You know, now as I'm an adult, I understand it more. But when you're 16 and wondering why they can't show up, but you know, my dad had to work Saturday morning sometimes and make overtime. My mom Saturdays here, she got to take care of stuff. You know what I mean? She got to get household in order. So that was probably be the only part overlooked, but that, you know, compared to some kids that are just off and gone and not paid attention to at all and getting into trouble, they kept a finger on pulse on us.
Sounds like you had a solid foundation.
Yeah, we did. We definitely did. You know, it was kind of crazy because, like I said, I go stay with my dad sometimes on the weekends, and he lived in the hood. And then, like I told you earlier, my parents moved us out of there to, thank God, get us out of that kind of environment, because I definitely would have ended up in debt or in jail. Because, like I said, I didn't think about consequences early in life. So it was a good thing they moved us away. But you know, living in the suburbs with white people, with my mom and stepdad, and then going to the hood and hanging with my dad, you know, it plays tricks on you a little bit. You know what I mean? You
so let's talk about that.
One foot on each side. Yeah. What do you want?
Let's talk about that. When you moved, like you just said, you moved into the suburbs around a whole bunch of white people. Was there like a moment where you felt like you didn't fit in or had to hide yourself?
No.
Or part to yourself?
No, not really. You know, back then in the 80s, at least here in Denver, it was, you know, it wasn't like it is now. Not being PC correct, but it was white, black, and what we call Chinese. You know, we didn't specify whether it was Asian or, you know, or, and it was just Mexican, you know,
Right.
not Latino, not Puerto Rican, not, you know what I mean? We had white people, we had black people, we had Chinese people. Yeah. So I had a lot of Mexican friends, a lot of white friends, a few Asian friends. But, you know, I didn't know anything about Armenians back then and this and that. So where I grew up, there was a good mix of people, but it's still considered white suburbia. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so, yeah, you know, it was cool. I mean, we had just a little ranch house. We weren't like rich or anything like that. My parents worked their butts off to provide what we had, but I had friends who were, you know, well off and had big nice houses and stuff, and go hang out with them and be like, so in one sense it was like, man, this is crazy, like especially the first few times I went over there. But as getting older in life, it's like, okay, this is what I want to strive to do, and you know, have nice things. And then I go hang with my dad, you know, in a 1-bedroom apartment in the hood, and you know, with roaches and what have you. And yeah, so, you know, you're living on both sides. I don't, you know, it's definitely conflicting to an
You
extent.
get the best of both worlds though, because you get to grow up tough.
I learned streets, like I'm very street smart, I think. And I definitely learned that from that side of my dad. I can call BS. I know how to read people. But, you know, it's nice to see the nice side of the tracks to an extent, and stuff to strive for, not just monetarily, but just a different life, I guess, so to speak. You know, my parents did that. They worked their butts off to the point where they bought a club down in the Springs. We moved into a nicer house, and, you know, it worked to an extent. But yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world. You know, definitely was different. You know, we're going from one to the other and then back and forth. I won't say that it didn't have conflict, you know, but
Okay.
overall, I think.
So what did a young Calvin dream of becoming before Collywood was ever an idea or a thing? What did you want to be when you were real young?
When I was really young, I wanted to be Top Gun was my movies. Let me tell you, man. My dad, let me go back. My real dad was also an Army vet. So I kind of grew up an Army brat, because living in the Springs, there was a base, and he would go on base a lot. We go to the PX and visit friends and what have you. So, yeah, I was really into planes. I could name any plane back in the 80s, tell you the payload, what its name was, what its code name was. And Top Gun was my favorite movie. I probably watched that thing 100 million times back in the 80s. And then I loved guns in warfare. I had every GI Joe you can name. I'd ask my dad to buy me the cool guns that made the sounds and shoot darts, and yeah. So I think I was very big on the military side. Like,
so you wanted to be in the military when you
I wanted to fly planes though.
Inspired by pops.
That's cool. To fly planes. My dad was in the Army, but he would tell me stories. You know, he's a Vietnam vet, of course. And he was a grunt. He rode the skis of the Hueys. You know, he was right in the thick of things. Got shot, had a few, but just tell me stories that I'd be in awe. And you know, he wasn't very withholding. You know, he'd tell me graphic stuff and things. And one of the things he always told me that stuck in was, "Son, don't go in the Army. Whatever you do, don't go in the Army."
Yeah.
You know, so that kind of stuck in. Like I said, I liked planes, so my plan was to go in the Air Force after high school. Was my So at a young age, that was the plan. But things don't always work out the way they're supposed to.
I hear that. So, how would you describe your relationship with mental health growing up? Was it talked about?
No, as I'm sure you're aware. You know, people of color. Mental health was not a thing in the 70s and 80s and growing up. You know, there was no being diagnosed with ADHD or anything like that. You know what I mean? It was like, but this boy's crazy. You remember the word "flicted"? This boy's flicted. You remember
that boy's flicted. There's something wrong with him. Yeah,
there's something wrong with him, you know. And I was very hyperactive. I still, to this point, I haven't been diagnosed, but pretty much guarantee I probably have adult ADHD. Because even as I sit here, you know, I'm having a hard time sitting still. You see, I move a lot, I talk with my hands a lot, I'm very expressive, but yeah, it's hard for me to sit still. So at a young age, yeah, it was like, boy, will you sit still? You know what I mean? In the back of the car, I was one of those bouncers that bounced back and forth and thing, and they have to tell me to stop it. So yeah, you know, I remember just being, and again, part of that creativity thing, like no way to express it. So it comes out negatively sometimes. But yeah, you know, it wasn't talked about. There was no thing mental health wise, like any inkling of being like, maybe you should check it, maybe you should talk to a therapist, maybe you should this, you know, are you depressed or this? And I can truthfully say, you know, the first time I suffer from depression, I'm on happy pills, I do therapy. But first time, like really remembering contemplating like suicide, I was 14. I can tell you that because I do remember.
All right. So before we get into that, because I want to dive into that, and I know you seem like you're ready to share it right now, but before we get into that, I want to ask you. Well, I want to say something before I ask you.
Okay.
But you were absolutely right about that. You know, you are a few years older than me, but we're kind of like from the same era. You know, you're a few years older, but we're kind of from the same era. So you're right about that. Mental health definitely was not talked about back then, you know, and people didn't really express their feelings like that. And if you did, it was considered a wuss or a sissy, especially for young Black men.
Yes.
You know, growing up in Philadelphia, I experienced that, you know. And our stories are kind of similar. Not how you grew up, but as far as because I was a troubled teen, I was in a boys' home. And I went from the city to the suburbs, and I was living in the suburbs for a while, and I stuck out a little bit because I was the only Black kid in the entire place.
Okay.
So, you know, I had a bunch of white friends, but, you know, it was a little odd at first. I had to adjust. And once I adjusted, it was pretty cool. You know, I got to know a different side of life that I would never experience had I was in a juvenile facility. So I can understand that. You know, you acquire knowledge about life in one way, and then you had the street smarts, like you said. So, yeah, I can relate to that a whole lot. All right, man. So here's my next question.
All right.
If you could go back to your teenage self, what would you tell him about resilience?
Oh, man. That's a pretty good question right there. You know, even at 52, that's how old I am now. Give out my age. You know, I'm still learning things. So I would tell the young me, definitely think outside the box. That's what makes Callywood music successful these days, is thinking outside the box, doing things differently. I'm not saying I do it better than anybody else. I just do things differently. And I wish I would have learned that at a young age to follow my own path. And do things your way, because, you know, at a teenager, you know, that was definitely part of my upbringing, was not following as a follower, but then being very easily tempted to do things by whether those older cousins. I had one who was really bad and got me in a lot of trouble. Let me just put it that way. And then friends, we would come up with plots, you know what I mean? Or yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Don't even think about it. Let's just do it. So I'd go back and tell me, you know, take all that energy and put it to work for good and positivity, and think outside the box when it comes to doing things, you know, work-wise, relationship-wise, all of it, mentally, physically. Yeah. So for resiliency, I would go back and tell myself that. It's like you're going to be really good at adapting to different environments and changing with the times and evolving. But I wish it would have started earlier. You know what I mean? I could like, oops, sorry, excuse me. I don't know if I can cuss or not. I might be a millionaire by now.
All right,
yeah, because I was just very, I was very motivated, but I wish I would have been motivated in the right way. You know what I mean? I wasted a lot of time. Like, as much as I had fun and partied and this and that, I wish I would have put it to good use, put it to better use at an earlier age. I'm glad I found, I've got it figured out to a certain extent. Better late than never, right?
Absolutely. Better late than never. I'm sorry. Better late than never.
Yeah.
I agree, because that's kind of where we're similar. Once again, I started off late too. I was doing the rap thing for a long period of time, doing shows across the city and going to different states for, tri-state. I'll say tri-state, not states, just in my area. But, doing that and making that a full-time thing, but it wasn't making no bread, and it's like, I'm chasing a dream, but in the same time, life is still life. And then I find my wife and, things like that. I had to figure out what I was going to do. So, I understand.
Yeah, it is. It took me years to figure out. I wish I would have put more energy, even into the acting thing. I would kind of take what I could get.
Would you go back to it with the experience that you have now, with the capabilities of doing radio and acting? Would you incorporate that now?
I would. I think I would. I've thought about it, actually, but I just don't know if I have the passion enough. You know what I mean? I especially starting in that early 30s. That's when I did that whole career change and wholeheartedly dove into it, partly because I was passionate about it. So I think it's like my true calling.
Right.
But, I worked like acting. It was like, okay, I'm good at this. I'm not great at it. I'm good at this. And I put in work. I did acting classes. I did training, I did vocal. I put in work, but I didn't really put in work, like eat and breathe it like I do radio.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And speaking of which, I was going to ask you, was there a moment when you first fell in love with radio or broadcasting? Let me know, what was that moment?
Was what? I'm sorry.
Was there a moment when you first fell in love with radio or broadcasting?
When I first walked into a studio, I did an internship. It was technically called a mentorship program for those that are interested, but maybe not sure about radio. I believe they still do it. It was called Radio Connection. And you pay a fee to be mentored. So as an internship, you're working for free, and it's usually something to do with school, right? For you to get experience. A mentorship program is more of you just mentor and shadow somebody within the industry. So I started that program back then. I don't know, it was like $3,000, $4,000. I can't remember exactly. And I got put with a program director in Glendale. I lived in Burbank, California, and Glendale was the next city over. And I got put at KKLA, the program director. And the first day I went and walked in that studio, I was like, yep, this is it. Because I've always been techie. I've always loved computers and everything and toys and anything electronic. I've always, as a kid, even like that. So when I first walked into a studio and got to walk into the production room and then the radio studio, I was like, wow. And they had old school. They had one that was like, it was like an archive back from the 60s, like the studio of the old days of broadcasting that they kept just to show people. And it was tape to tape. It had tape decks. For those that don't know, before the digital world, it was all on tape. And yeah, I got to see and learn the whole old school system, like from radio, like back in the day radio, how they did things before the digital age.
Right.
So yeah, I fell in love with it then. And then same thing when I first walked into a production studio, like audio studio, like music and stuff. First time I saw an actual board, I was like, I can't wait to learn this thing. This is awesome. So after that mentorship program, we ended up moving back to Denver because, like I said, we had twins on the way. And my in-laws, my mother-in-law says, "Hey, you guys move back to Colorado. I will retire and watch him." So we're like, bet, we got free daycare. So we ended up moving back. And once we got settled back, I went back to school for both broadcasting and audio engineering. And
So
the
which
reason
one
I
do you love
know,
more?
the reason I know I love it and I was passionate about it is because while I was going to school, okay, my kids are 6 months old, right? Twins, mind you. I'm going to school at night, 4 nights a week, I believe it was. And I was working full time. And, the first 6 months of school, it was that. Working the day, school at night, hang with the family on the weekends, get with the kids and family time as I could. Then I started internships. So it was like, all right, school, the days I didn't have school and weekends, I would internship and try to balance all that out, right? School, full-time work, internships, and home life. And I did it and loved every minute of it. And I put in work. I put in work for a year and a half. So that's how I knew this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Might have got ahead of myself there. Sorry, but.
Oh, no. You were fine because you were breaking everything down. And like I know, that's what makes good radio.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this too, Cal. You definitely got the radio voice.
Thank you.
You sound like you belong on Smooth Sounds, WJJZ.
Smooth 104.3, Jazz of the City. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's crazy. I heard that, I always worked some type of customer service, or there was some customer service aspect to just day jobs I did.
Right.
I worked for a hardware store, like, in high school, where I worked for fast food. And then I got a job in college. I worked at a hardware store, which I absolutely loved for a few years. And then from there, I went into cellular and pagers, and always went on the phone. It's like, you got a really cool voice. You got a really good voice. You know what I mean? Like, good smile and a good voice. That's what I was told a lot. So, yeah.
Yo, that actually goes to both things, though.
I wish I could sing, but I can't. I can't hold a tune, can't hold a note. But I was blessed with a good voice and a gift of gab. So I'll take it. You know what I mean? I take it.
All right. So let's talk a bit about the inception of Collywood. Let's talk about the early days. How did that come about?
Okay. So fast forward through finished school. I finished school. And let me do this right now. I'm going to drop this gem. Sorry. And I hope I might, again, be putting the cart ahead of the horse. But hard work is what you need to put in to get where you want to go in anything you want to do. I mentioned I was doing internship. I was working. I was going to school and still feeling, family time and all that, and balancing it pretty good to the best I could. Right. But the biggest part of that, and I learned this early on in school when we had a speaker come in from like a local local TV station. He was not huge, like big, but he was a well-known anchor on this news station. So we had guest speakers come in and talk to us. And I remember within the first couple months of school, this guy came in and he was talking to us and laying out like the lay of the land for broadcasting and like where you would start and what kind of city, start small, go to a bigger market, yada, yada, and how he started, gave us his story. And the one thing that stuck in my mind was internship, 2-year internships, learn as much as you can, meet as many people as you can, right?
Right.
That stuck with me. And I think I did 6 internships throughout the whole thing. And in my last internship, which I did for about 4 months, I was in everybody's ear, man. Program director, show host, radio show host, anybody that worked in the station, because I was trying to land a job, right? I'm coming to the end of school and asking. And one of my mentors, she actually worked for the Smooth Jazz station. And she got me an interview with the news director over at another radio station cluster, which was called Clear Channel, which is iHeart today. So she got me an interview with the news director, and I got on and I started doing traffic reporting and news reports. But I did them in the night. I worked from 12 from midnight to 6 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays. That was my first job in radio. I absolutely loved it. I got hired pretty much right out of school, and I worked Fridays and Saturday nights, midnight to 6 a.m. Or no, I'm sorry, Saturday and Sunday. My bad. Sorry, Saturday and Sunday nights, midnight to 6 a.m. And so that Sunday, you know, I would go in Sunday night, work till 6 a.m. Monday morning, and then go straight to work. So again, I'm saying work ethic is serious, people. Some of these younger generations, they think they're entitled. I'm sorry, it's not that way. You got to work your butt off to get where you want to be. So take what you can get. I did a lot of free work, a lot of free internships, and it paid off. And you know, I worked that for about a year and a half, and then same kind of thing. I networked since I was in the building. I started networking with program directors and show hosts and looking for extra work. I met the program director of the AM stations and got in good with him. So I got some extra hours doing production work, and I learned some amazing stuff under him. Then I worked myself up to technical producer. Then I worked my way up to producer. So I was working as a producer and for the AM stations for 3-4 years. But my goal was to become a show host. I wanted to be a radio show host. That was always the goal. And so I came up with the idea, talking about resiliency, right? That this is what I didn't see being done was independent music shows, at least here in Colorado at that time. So we're talking 2007 to 2012. That's the time I worked for Clear Channel. And I thought we had even back then, I thought we had a great music scene, a great independent music scene. So my idea was to do like a locals only show. You know, I pitched this idea to a lot of program directors that I can get in front of and say, locals only. I don't care if it's Sundays at midnight or blah, blah, blah. You know, I just want to bring in artists, get to know them, talk to them, hear their backstories. Not these little chintzy things that some radio stations do. They do like a favoritism kind of thing. You know, they'll play somebody's music because they know them, or popularity contest. You know what I mean? They have to win. They have to win something to get played, or to be the opening act for this person, or yada yada. It wasn't really getting to know the artist. It was just like, hopefully we get our song in the mix, right? Right. So that was my idea, and I didn't see it being done anywhere really. There was like a locals only where they played like rock, like one of our rock stations, I think it was local 303 show or something. But, you know, no left for the hip hop scene or any of the other music genres we had popping off at the time. So, yeah, just nobody was feeling it, I guess. So, you know, internet radio just started kind of booming in 2011, 2012. And sitting around one day, I had actually launched CALLYWOOD as a production company. I was doing audio production and a little bit of music. So I started that in 2010. Yeah. So working in radio, and again, the resiliency. This is when my brain really like clicked in on doing things differently in my early 30s when I got into radio. It really just, I don't know, clicked. So I look at things like, look at something that wasn't being done. And back then when I said I was producing, I had produced on the weekends for brokered shows for the radio station. For those that aren't familiar with broker shows, people pay for time. It's not like the show host you hear, the morning show, right? That get paid by the radio station. Brokered, it could be like a lawyer or a foodie or a car guy, and they pay for air slot or air time to basically promote. It's at the end of the day, it's to promote their business, but they do it in a roundabout way. Like maybe they answer questions. Like I produced a car guy show, and people would call in with issues about their, monkey wrenches would call in with issues about their car they're putting together, and the guys would answer. And they were very brilliant at it. They knew their stuff back and forth. And then after that was a lawyer show, and then they would take like, hey, I got hit by a bike. What should I do? You know what I mean? They would answer questions about legality and stuff. And they were all really good shows, and not good shows. They were smart people, but not good radio. You know what I mean? So I kind of slid in on the side and be like, hey, I can make your radio show sound like a radio show. You know what I mean? We'll do liners and bumpers and intros, and your sponsors, I'll create commercials and blah, 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 blah. So, a few of them bit and took it on. And so I became their producer. Like I created all their content audio wise, imaging, they still would answer the questions and this and that, but I made it sound more radio-ish, I guess. And yeah, I made a little chunk of change off that. And then I would do a little music on the side. A couple artists I would, do music for. So anyways, that's kind of where I started.
Answered my question I was going to ask you.
Yeah, that kind of started with CALLYWOOD. But anyways, fast forward to 2012. internet radio starts booming, and I'm sitting around one day with my sister and said, I start a radio station, and we were drinking at the time and just BSing about it for like an hour, hour and a half. And like, now we can get a cool little studio. We can do this and that and yada, yada. And, it was like, but it was one of those drunk things, right? Like, yeah. So I woke up the next day and it was still just embedded in my brain. I was like,
Yeah.
Even sober, I'm like, yeah, that's what I should do. So did research for about 6 months, and I launched Callywood Radio in May of 2012. So that was the beginning of that portion. So had the production thing going, and just kind of evolved into Callywood Radio, and started representing the independent music scene. We did exactly what we said. I got a studio down on 16th Street Mall, which is our downtown area. It was dope. It was fun. It was a party spot. Not very business oriented at the time. It was more of fun, but it was the beginning origins, and it grew. We launched our second station 2 years later in 2014. We launched a streaming TV channel in 2016. Did events all along the way. We still do events. And yeah, here we are, rocking. Where are we at? 13 years later, still rocking strong.
That's dope, man. And you know what? I want to say, I think that's pretty awesome, because the best things get started from conversations that you've had, and then the night goes on, you sleep, and once you wake up, if it's still embedded in your head, that means it was meant for you to do it.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So I think that's pretty awesome that you stuck with it, because here we are in a partnership, and we're doing our thing together, man. And I commend you for everything you're doing. When I saw what you were doing, I was amazed at it. Like, yo, this is pretty dope. And he's looking for some new talent,
Yeah.
He checked me out, y'all, and was like, hey, come on board. So I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate, being on the team and working with you, man, because it's pretty awesome, and it's a pleasure to work with you.
Yeah, and ditto. I know there's a lot of creatives all over the country doing what I'm doing the exact same thing. And why can't we all eat? Why can't we all work together? I started that. Like, that's a crazy thing. Like, it's coming around now here in Colorado. I don't know about out there, but almost like how hip hop artists are. Like, yeah, there should be a certain level of what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
camaraderie.
Yeah, of that, but I mean of competition. There should be a level of competition, but not hating on each other. Not trying to get to the finish line first, because that's what hip hop is, right? It's competition at the end of the day, but
right.
in a healthy manner. You know what I mean? So the scene has gotten a lot better here, where a lot more artists are working with other artists, as opposed to when it was very cliquish and people would only work with their camps or people or their city. You know what I mean? But it's still kind of that way in the media part, like all of us that are entrepreneurs, but on the small media scale, like working with each other, like me and you, right? Working with each other, like collabing on stuff that doesn't really happen a lot in the city. Like, there's a few who will collab with each other, but overall, it's like, yeah, they're think of you as competition, and they don't want to mess with you. Me, I'm not that way, of course. Like, I think there's room for all of us, just like an artist. The more noise we make,
the bigger it gets.
Bigger it gets, right? I always like to use the Million Man March as an example. Like, if that Million Man March was only a one-man march, would it make as much noise?
Right.
So,
I agree with you there, 1,000%.
Let's all get in on this. So that was my goal for 2025. I want to find more people like you across the nation and collab. I've got a resource that I want people to use. You've got an amazing show. Why shouldn't it be seen in more places?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I appreciate you coming on board, and the work ethic and the work you put into it too. Most definitely.
Hey, man,
not everybody does it that way.
I really look at it like this, because a lot of the times, a lot of people want to be the main attraction to everything that they do. You know, but one thing that I realized is there's no I in team. You know, in order for things to be successful, your team has to have the same common goal, and you're all willing to work together to get there. So that's how I look at this when it comes to, you know, what we do. You know, it's a partnership, it's a friendship as well.
Yeah.
And it's the same common interest to do the same thing and get it going. And it's going. We moving and booming.
Right. Yeah, man. Teamwork makes the dream work. I mean, that's
absolutely.
It. Yeah.
So,
and you know, big part of that is you got to have the right team. You know, everybody's got to do their part, right? Accountability. Right. That's where it falls short a lot of the time. You know, it's not about the $1 million idea; it's $1 million execution. Unfortunately, some people not be on your level. You know, goals aligned, your level of commitment, and yeah. So got to find the right ones, like yourself.
So, how did you know it was time to create something bigger than yourself, though? You know, because, you know, I hear everything that you're saying, and I agree with you 1,000%, right? But what was the moment that made you feel like, yo, it's bigger than me? It's about the artist. It's about, you know, connecting a bridge for other people to walk on, you know, because there are so many people that have platforms like yours. And they, like you said, they do the favoritism thing or the popular thing. They want to deal with who's popular or who's popping. And what we're doing is not really popular to people. What is popular? I'm saying, as far as the world is concerned, doing it this way is not a popular thing. You know, they want the people that's just with the big names and, you know, highlighting artists that are the guy or the unheard person is important. I feel like that's something that's very important, you know, making sure these artists are heard. But how did you know that it was something bigger than yourself?
I think when I moved back from LA, and again, my goal was to be a on-air talent, right? And want to be a big famous one, like, you know, not that he's not big now, but back when we lived in LA, Big Boy with Power 106 was like the it, you know what I mean? And then we had Kevin and Bean from K-Rock, which was the rock station. Those are the two I listened to most mornings. And again, they were cool. Like, I didn't hang out with them, but I knew a few people at the station and would go to events. And I was like, okay, so my goal when I first got into radio was I wanted to be that, right? I wanted to be on front and camera, almost like as an actor. You know, I did have a sense of like, I like to be the center of attention. I like to be, you know, loud and have fun and that. I'm not always have to be that, but that's definitely like the whole acting part. Like, yeah, I want to be the next, at that time, I wanted to be like the next Cuba Gooding Jr., you know what I mean? Denzel. And so when I got radio, it was like, all right, I want to be like a show, you know, I want to be in the front. I want people to see me and hear me. And then slowly, as part of it was like when I started really getting into radio, like I love the back end, the production, like the creation, the logistics of it all. You know, I have a very methodical mind. And I was like, okay, this is cool. But fast forward then, you know, the kids are born and we moved back, and I'm starting to meet up with friends and go to clubs and this here and there. And especially since when I started my internships, I would go to venues and stuff. And like, man, there's some talent. I remember going to, one of my friends was an artist when we first moved back, and he had this like art pop-up thing that he had put a couple pieces in, and we went to it, and they had this band play. And at the time I was working at Clear Channel and was just still doing production. And they were just blowing me away. They were a local act, and I was like, what? And this comes because, you know, coming back from LA, that's a music scene, right? That's a music scene.
And that's one of the biggest conglomerates in radio, period.
Right. So, you know, I've seen a lot of good talent out there, but I was just blown away the first year when I moved back in, what was that? 06. So we moved back in 06. And going to just different things and seeing how the music scene, our music scene, not like going to big shows like mainstream. I'm talking like indie artists and the local venues, the smaller venues, and just like, wow, this is really cool. Like, I would love to just help promote. And I remember talking. Let me back up. So I remember talking to that band, God, I just forgot the name of their band. I can't remember what it was, but I remember talking to a couple of the members of the band, and I was like, God, you guys are amazing, man. Where are you from? And they're like, we're from here. And talking to them, I was like, well, I work in radio. I was like, I can't guarantee that I can get you guys heard or played or anything, but if you want to give me a CD, I work for a station that has 93.3. You guys know, I was like, oh my God, we love 93.3. And I was like, yeah, I can try to get it to one of the DJs. I can't get, again, I'm not guaranteeing you, but give it to me and I'll try to get it to them. And that's kind of how things started. Like, I was like, I just really wanted to help them out. I thought they were that amazing. I thought they were just unbelievably talented. The lead singer just blew me away. And so I said, yeah. So they gave me their demo, and, I tried as well as I can. I took it to first one of the on-air talent and said, hey, can you just get this to your program director? I know you guys do like your locals once a year where they let people open for the holiday show. And I was like, yeah, we can just get this in. And I never knew what happened of it. I didn't hear anything, of course. I didn't you can't really keep just hounding people. You know what I mean? You'll get in trouble, of course. They'll go to my boss and be like, yo, man, this dude's just coming down to our floor and bothering us all the time. Just play his music or play his friends' music. So, I followed up a couple of times, and I kind of left it at that, but didn't hear anything, never heard their music on the radio, never really saw them again. But I think that was it. I was just like, there's just so much talent here. I would really like to help these guys out, man. I mean, again, that thinking outside the box, like, I'm seeing something that's not being done. What can I do to connect that bridge, right? Yeah. That was it. There was no more of just, I want to be a famous on-air talent. It was more of like, I'm on a mission to grow our music scene. That's now my mission.
That's cool, man. And I think that's commendable, because you took yourself out of the equation, and although you did have the aspirations to be the guy in the front, and you're still the guy in the front. Yeah. It's just a bit different because you still get the highlight artists. What we do is similar, Mm-hmm. And I had inspiration from you. So let me say this on air live. My inspiration comes from you as well, because I have a radio station too. Yeah. So being as though that we came together, it's perfect, because I get to watch what you do. I learn from you, and I have a great rapport to the point where this show, man, it's helping so many people, and I'm just humbled and thankful to God for that, because I really care about helping the artists more than anything else. And the fact that we get to talk about mental health on a daily, because I like to share the side of the artist that no one knows. Yeah. This is where they can come for that. On Collywood, they can come to Collywood. You know what I'm saying? Come on here and watch and hear about some artists and hear about stories they went through and how they got to where they are. So that's dope.
It really is, man. I like to hear people's stories. Like, there's so many different ones, especially now here in Colorado. We are a melting pot. We got a lot of local artists who are natives, of course, but given how Colorado was blown up the last 10 years, we have people coming from everywhere. And it's really interesting to hear stories about where they're from, how they grew up, how they got into music. I'm really fascinated by that portion of it, along with just hearing new music. I still dig just hearing an artist I've never heard before that blows me away. Like, wow, this dude's dope. Wow. Yeah. Okay, gotta play this. Gotta get this in the mix. I think those two parts are awesome. And although, it's not all about me, it is almost to an extent satisfying. One of my dreams is as young as, MTV, I was around for the birth of MTV, right? And loved it and watched it when it was MTV.
They're fizzling out now. They crashing out. There's nothing but Jersey Shore on there for the most part.
But back in the mid to late 80s and early 90s, when it was, TRL, and they did host, Nana Lewis, rest in peace. She just passed. She was a great MTV VJ, and Carson Daly, of course, but all of them. But I really wanted to be like one of those guys. There was a few contests they did throughout the years, and I think I entered every single one of them.
Yeah.
MTV VJ and submit. You submit. Back then it was like cassette tape that you had to submit.
Yeah,
you submit
that was a time.
intro. But I wasn't a season. I'm sure if I was as confident as I am now and had all the qualities of the acting and everything that I have now, I probably would have had a better chance. But I went for it, and I thought those were the coolest jobs. I was like, that is a cool job. They get to hang out, party, talk to artists, go to different places, do these shows. Like they did the big dance parties, like on the beaches and this and that, and like the Cisco Shakedown. So that was kind of living out one of the dreams. But prior to like wanting to be in the Air Force, and when that didn't work out and everything, and I went to college, and I thought that would be cool. So sorry, long story short, this is kind of doing that. You know what I mean? I get to do radio. I get to talk to people. I do live from events. I do live streams. We just did this show called Rave and Busters, where we took over a Dave and Buster's and made it a rave for an evening. I mean, who gets to do that?
That's cool.
Who gets to do that? And so it really is living out that dream that I had 30 years ago in my early 20s. You know what I mean? Late teens, early 20s. So, it all comes full circle.
All right. So here's my next question. What fears are I'm sorry, I'm a little tongue twisted. I need some water.
Yeah, I know, me too. Like I forgot my
What
water.
fears or self-doubt did you have to overcome to become an entrepreneur in this space?
Whew. Yeah, man.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Seriously. I say this on my show a lot. This industry is not easy. If it were, everybody would do it, right? And when I say this industry, I mean like the creative space, entrepreneur. I'm talking artists, music artists, videographers, photographers, models, brands, clothing, any small business really. But especially us, radio, podcast, everybody can't do this. In today's world, everybody can do it. Like you have the opportunity, digital world, you can do it, but
everybody ain't got that it factor though.
Yeah, it factor in doing.
We got that it factor.
Yeah, doing it right and doing it the way it can be, right? So when I first started Callywood, people and family members looked at me like, "What? I don't get it." You know what I mean? So their self-doubt definitely leaked into me having self-doubt about it a little bit. And then I launched it, and then I had a chip on my shoulder that I want to make it popular. You know what I mean? But to the point where I had that chip on my shoulder was affecting me mentally, physically, financially, because I wanted it to succeed, that I lost sight of other things in my family, of course. Again, my kids were young. Like I mentioned earlier, the studio we had was more of a party spot. So I'm spending nights down there nightly and getting home late, drinking and driving and blowing money and not taking care of business. You know what I mean? Like it snowballed, that chip on my shoulder. So self-doubt leading to that, to make it successful. You know what I mean? All fear of like, what if I don't make it successful and I've done this and that? And yeah, so those early days, it was more so about proving people wrong as opposed to being able to be an entrepreneur. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense.
In the early days,
I definitely understand how that feels, because it was kind of the same for me. Before doing the pot, I was on a radio station in Huntsville, Alabama. I wasn't living there. I'm in North Carolina, but you know how these things work now.
Yeah.
I was a co-host of a morning show Monday through Friday, and it was a good show. We were doing our thing. And that was my first time, you know, learning the ropes of radio, how it works, how to, you know, learn how to not interject, you know, not to overtalk. I still have like a little bit of problem with that. I'm getting a little better, way better than what I used to.
Yeah.
But I will say that, you know, I had self-doubt once I was on my own because the host quit. He wanted to try something different. And I was kind of like, okay, I do have my own business. I have a business already, and I'm doing that business. But on my free time, what am I going to do?
Right.
Well, my free time wound up turning into a business. And I'm thankful for that. So it was a lot of self-doubt, though, because I was like, well, what if they don't receive me the same way they receive me all over here?
Yeah.
What if people's not watching? You know, because those are the early on thoughts when you're first starting anything, right? You know, you have this nervousness every time you're on, or, you know, you just feel like you can't do it right. So I can understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that goes into what we do to make
it's a lot of work.
Make it look, you know,
flyers, advertisement.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's on our own. A lot of it's on our own time and our own dime, and you know, it's a production. You know, you know, you're putting a lot of work into making it look good, sound good, and I wouldn't have it any other way. That's one of the biggest lessons I learned from working in terrestrial radio was when I started Callywood Radio. I was like, this is gonna. I run it like a radio station. This isn't like two people sitting on the couch. No offense to people that do that and, you know, just stream or what have you. But, you know, like I said, when I first started it, we had a studio, I had production studio, I had the broadcast studio. And although, you know, I don't have a brick and mortar anymore because it's expensive, I still run it just like a radio station. Everything's on point, right? Everything sounds good, looks good to an extent, you know, as well as I can have it. It's I'm just not built that way, I guess. So, you know, it's the analogy I use is like everybody sees this part, right, of us just chopping it up. You see their banner, the ticker banner on the bottom, and how well this looks. But it takes a lot of work to make it look this good. You've got it down to a science. It's on point, right? Yeah. So the analogy I like to use is like a glacier or an iceberg. You know, you only see the tip of it, and that's what people see. But underneath that water is, you know, all the work. Biggest part of it, of that glacier's underneath that water that you don't see. You see the beautiful tip of it and think, wow, that's great. That's awesome. That's all you see. They don't see all the work that goes into it. The other analogy I like to use is a duck on a pond, you know, on the surface, right? Calm, he's smooth, he's gliding along, just strutting along there in his thing. But underneath his feet are paddling. That's right. That's us. You know, we put a lot of work in underneath that surface. We are doing everything. We wear many hats. We do that. But on the surface, this is all you see right here. So
that's right. A lot of sleepless nights, you know, as well, because sometimes you can be so excited for a guest that you miss sleep because you're anticipating their arrival or an event or anything that it is that you really want to do, you know. So I understand exactly what you mean. And the work behind all of this is a lot for those that don't know. Yeah. Like Kyle said, you know, the production part of it, I'm literally producing the show as we go along live right now for y'all to see. So everything that you see, I have no camera guy, I have no editor. Everything that you see, the camera switching, all of it, it's all me. And, you know, sometimes that's what it takes for it to be great. We have to learn things and we have to keep processing and keep building and keep learning as well.
You are 100% right. Like I said, we got to wear many hats. And yeah, man, when I do my New Music Monday shows, I have 2 co-hosts, but I still do a majority of the work. You know, I talk to the artists, I get the music submissions, I review the submissions, I put the daily plan together. You know, they come in and they help me during the show, but all the production and the prep work, I do. I do all of that. I spend a good 10 hours a week getting ready for the next show, talking to guests, getting the schedule lined up. So, it is a work, and that's just running my show. That's not running Callywood. You know what I mean? That's for one show. So
one show
to affect everything else we've got to do, right? The social media, the like keeping your pay, right? Your YouTube up, all the shows, and yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of time consuming, thankless work, right?
Yes, it is. It is.
But I do it because I love
and
it.
I do it all as well. So I understand. I run the station. I run Going In Radio. I run the pot. I do the advertisement side for the social media as well. So I understand. So let me ask you, how did your earlier years in radio and production influence the vision for Callywood?
I just about how I mentioned, learning to do it the correct way. Because radio, and especially terrestrial radio, that's AM, FM. Sorry for those that might not know. Time is money, right? I mean,
right.
Time is money. Time is money in every aspect of it, not just what's on the radio, but getting stuff ready for the radio. You know what I mean? You're working on a shoestring budget a lot of the time. So production work had to be crisp. It had to be clean, but it had to be done efficiently, quickly. You know what I mean? So quickly doesn't mean sloppily. You can't do that. Not. It doesn't work that way. So, I'm the production assistant. Somebody hands me a rush job saying, hey, we need this by 5 p.m. It's now 4:22. And plus we need this on-air talent to voice it. Instead of going to complain to my program director, you've got to figure out how to get that done. This is where that resiliency came in, right? You got to figure stuff out, figure it out quickly. So part of it is like learning to work well under pressure, my early days, and creating quality work. You know what I mean? The nice thing about internet radio and what we do is we have more time. It's not always rush, but it is to an extent because we've got a lot to do. You know what I mean? I don't have just this thing to create, but it definitely taught me to work efficiently and work fast, but still work quality and efficient. So I think those are the two things. And as I mentioned earlier, running Callywood Radio as if it were any corporate size big station. You know what I mean? It's 24/7. We have imaging, we have commercials and promos and things that we put into play. Just the clock and the format is created specifically. You know what I mean? Just everything I learned how to run it, a real radio station, I put into play here. So I really am thankful for the early days and some of the mentors I had. And here's a trip is I have a cousin that works in radio. He is older. I was the ring bearer in their wedding. That's how older they are. So maybe 10, 15 years younger. Say I'm 50, so they're probably 65. Yeah, it's about 15 years older. And he worked in radio a long time when I was young. And I remember telling friends, that's my cousin. He works in radio. Yeah, you can hear him on this station. You can hear him on that station. This is before I knew anything about radio, right? And then fast forward, he went and did another career for a long time. And then he went back to radio. And in his first go around radio, one of his students, somebody he was mentoring, her name was Becky Taylor. Fast forward to when I'm working and have a mentor. My mentor was Becky Taylor. So my cousin was her mentor. And then fast forward 20 years later, she was my mentor. So it's kind of cool.
Oh, man, that is cool. Hey, folks, on YouTube, I see y'all on here watching. Leave some comments. Let us know where you're from. Drop a comment. I'll post it on the screen. They'll see your comment. Listen, it's people in LinkedIn and the LinkedIn world and stuff like that. They can't post from LinkedIn with this service that I use, but that'll change soon because I'm about to switch services.
Yeah.
But thank y'all for watching in LinkedIn right now. Facebook as well. It's booming out here. So if y'all watching, drop a comment. I will post it. Here's my next question.
What's that?
Okay. Solo Dolo can for you?
Solo Dolo.
All right.
Solo Mio.
Did you ever feel burned out or mentally drained working in this industry?
Absolutely.
And if so, what did you do to de-stress?
Man, like I said earlier, this industry is not easy to work in. It can be mentally draining, thankless. Sorry, not thankful. Thankless. And you get, I say this a lot, if you ever thought about quitting, then you ain't really passionate about what you're doing. There's been many times I thought I was going to throw the hat in, and then many times I just burnt out. So the biggest thing when I know I'm really, really burnt out is it's time for a break. It's time to walk away, not forever, but you know what I mean? Like, it's time to take a break. So like mid-season, like I do new music Mondays. We started in February and we don't finish till November. And there are some breaks in there, because I'm out of town on a Monday or this or that, but majority it's like, that's their season from February, late February, early March to up till Thanksgiving. And then I take Thanksgiving through January off from doing any radio. Like I might do an event or two or this, but I don't do any live radio. Right. Mm-hmm. So that is my reset time. But even during the season, I get burnt out. I'm tired like I am right now. I've done, 3 months of shows with maybe missing 1 or 2 weeks because of, other engagements. But I'm like, all right, August, it's time to move the kids back into their dorms the first 2 weeks of August. So August is a reset time. I'm going to take a few weeks off, enjoy some family time and reset a little bit because summer's busy with events. I was telling you last week, I'm sorry I didn't get this done because, I had a back-to-back events last week. So not only are we running CALLYWOOD and doing this, but we have events that we're either collab on or sponsor and got to show up at or help putting on, right? So, you get burnt out real quick when you're going that hard. And so it's time to just take a step back, put things on autopilot. And so that's probably the biggest one. When I know I'm feeling a certain kind of way, it's like, all right, I need a break. Like when I know I don't want to open up social media or look at anything or that or comment or thing, I know it's like, all right, I need a break.
Yeah, sometimes you need that break.
Yeah, just like anybody on social media. Sometimes you just need a break from social media, but I just need a break from it all. So like, we got a fun holiday weekend coming up, right? So I probably won't be doing much work-wise, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, my birthday's tomorrow.
Yeah, happy early birthday.
Yeah, my birthday is tomorrow. I plan on relaxing and not doing a damn thing except enjoying it.
Enjoy. You got to do that. So you got to learn. You got to know when to take those breaks. Secondly is, you can't. I tried this for years, and you can't satisfy everybody. Can't satisfy.
So what
everybody.
do you do when you take that time off, though? What do you do?
What do I do? Like I said, a lot of family time for that. For when I'm taking a break, it's because I need time, like to recenter. So in break time, it's pretty much just chilling. Maybe I have some fun with friends and go out, do some outdoor stuff. I like to golf.
You're gonna have to teach me, bro. I can't golf.
You like to golf? You want to golf?
No, I never golfed.
Oh, you never
golfed? I
golf?
would love to.
Yeah, it is a hate-love relationship. I'll tell you that right now. You're gonna hate it. You're gonna love it. But mainly spend time with the family on our patio, just chilling. Like we're very big homebodies, so that's part of it. Now in the day-to-day, that's a different thing. Like dealing, I don't know if we're getting to that point yet of mental health and on the day-to-day, but just for business-wise, when I'm burnt out, that's the biggest thing is take some time and just step away from it. You got to learn that you can't satisfy everybody. That took me a long time to learn, and you got to be able to learn how to say no. That's another big thing, because especially when, in the early years, it's like, I don't want to say no. I want to get as much done and as much exposure and get it. Many people, like, oh yeah, you got this, I will come. Yeah, you got this, yeah, I'll come. I'm old now. I get invited to a lot of shows, a lot of events. I could literally go out every night of the week into an event every weekend, and it ain't happening, bro. Maybe 1-2 a month, because I gotta say no. I'm sorry, I'm busy. And my busy might just be I'm chilling. the fam. But I got a lot going on. I run CALLYWOOD. Where I'm at now is another production director for Rutherford Audio. We're a high-end audio company. That's why you're seeing stuff here. And then Denver Open Media, the radio station, the FM station that I ran for four years. We just recently sold to Colorado University, so that's one little thing off my plate. But I still work for the organization. That's where I do my show from. Anybody that sees my radio show, the New Music Mondays, that's where I do it from, is Denver Open Media. So I'm still on staff and do a few things there. So literally 3 jobs. I work 3 jobs.
That's cool. So why is amplifying indie artists and local culture so personal to you?
Because not so much as an entrepreneur, but starting back from even the acting days, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be, exposure. I wanted to get known, in a sense. Of course, yeah. As an actor, yes, I wish for success and wanted to be a celebrity and wanted to be in movies, and this and that was the beginning of the goal. But then it came to, I just like to make a nice little career out of it. And then it came to, I'm not going to do this consistently, so let's find something else I'm passionate about. But through all of those, there were people that helped me along the way, like an agent. I remember even before moving out there, being able to talk to an agent and him giving me the 411 on like, stay away from this. Don't ever buy anything. Don't ever pay for this and this and this. And I was able to check in with him and ask him questions. He'd be like, oh, steer clear of that or this. There were people, or my mentor, Becky Taylor, helping me, or program director helping me. So there were people that helped me along the way. And then there were people that tried to take advantage of me along the way, in scenarios or situations. And that sucks. That's really crappy. It really is, that there are people like that out there, and it's unfortunate. So me, I want to help. I just want to help. There's no ulterior motives here. I'm not a money grab. I'm not trying to get you to do some promotion on me when I bring you in. I don't charge for interviews. I've never have charged for an interview on my radio show, like New Music Mondays. Now, are there opportunities for paid promotion? Of course. But I see these people out there paying like $100 for an interview, and they don't even like research who this person is, or do they have any following, or you know what I mean, or this or that. And I think that's just crappy. If you've got a great following, you got thousands of people listening, cool, power to you. Yeah, you should deserve to get charged. But I don't know, in a sense, it's kind of like an underdog story. Like I like underdog movies, let's say. I don't the lovey-dovey, the person that dies, the reconnect, the romance, I could care less. But you give me a good underdog story where they persevere. Rudy is like the biggest one, right? That's the biggest underdog story of that will tug at my heartstrings. You know what I mean? Like, I love to see people win when they're down, or counted out, if that makes sense. And all of these artists and all these people in this business, they're not down and out by any means, but I want to do my part to help lift them up, help them get seen, give them exposure. I have a platform that can do that now. So I'm going to damn well use it to the best of my ability to help them, because it's an uphill battle for all of us, for you, for me, and these artists, these video, everybody's just trying to make it in the world. Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to help, because I know there's a lot of people out there who won't.
I want to say thank you for that. I want to say thank you for, seeing what I do, believing in it, giving me this opportunity. First of all, it means a lot to me. And I also want to thank you for putting that front in rotation.
Yes, you are welcome. Yes, definitely got it in rotation.
The video is being worked on as we speak, bro. And that video that just came on in the beginning, the first video, that was one of my records as well.
I saw that. Yeah. Get him rocking. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, you guys are making some dope visuals, some amazing music. Let's get it popping. Let's get it out there. I wish we could get it on every radio station across the nation. Because a lot
Hey,
of you guys
listen,
are radio ready, but
Hollywood is going to be one big conglomerate,
yeah,
and they're
it.
going to be knocking on the door, soon.
That's the
They
plan, man.
see what's going on. They see what's going on. And there's a big following booming now. It's going to get even bigger, man. So the more we continue to work, the more, everybody that's on the show. So, I'm going to let you do this, though, because I don't want to do the talking for you. I want you to tell the people about some of the other, creators on the channel and on, the .com. Tell them a bit about that.
Of course. So let me set it up real quick before I just give that. I'm a gift of gabber. So my goal for 2025, which I told you in our first conversations, was to let more utilize my platform as a resource. You know what I mean? There's a lot of amazing creators doing some good work, great work out there, and have their own thing, their own lane. They have their own shows, they have their own platforms, which is awesome. But I just thought, hey, I think it'd be cool to get more shows involved and showcased on our platforms to new audiences. And that's part of the takeover for 2025 is I want to build a network of creatives across the nation. You know what I mean? I know what's going on here in Colorado. You know what's going out there in North Carolina, but vice versa. I don't know what's going on out there. You don't know what's going on here. So we connect up and let our people know what's going on out there, what your people are going on out here. I think that's a good first phase of it. It's not that's not the tell all, but it's creating that network, that bridge for all of us. That's still in the process of where we are now, right? So that was my goal for 2025, is get some some goal aligned individuals who are goals aligned and what we're trying to do align in play. So that's what this is about. We've got a good pool of shows so far. We have a lot more to come. I'm going to put the word out there for the second half of the year for more. Now that I'm kind of getting you guys situated, but so of course we have you Monday, Wednesdays, Saturdays, right? 7 p.m. to, or I guess 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. your time.
Yeah.
9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern time. So you can watch the podcast, of course, Mondays and Wednesdays on Callywood TV and Callywood Radio. You can hear it there. And then, of course, during the pot on Saturdays, 9 to 11. And then from there on Mondays, of course, got to get my new music Mondays. I'm on 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We play new tracks from artists from all over the nation, really all over the world. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned, we got artists from
all
7 different countries.
Y'all.
Yeah, all genres from 7 different countries. We're working on. I want to double that by the end of 2025. We get about 300 submissions a year, so we always have new music in play, and then we talk to artists and small business owners. So we're on 5 to 7 Mountain Standard Time on Mondays, and then on Wednesdays we have from the bottom to the top podcast, and that is on at 11 Central Standard Time. We have DJ I want to say DJ Soul, but that's not it. The name of the show is Soul Speaks with DJ Day. Let me back that up. DJ Day and Soul Speaks on at 2 p.m. And that's Central. No, that is Pacific. So I know they're kind of all over the time. I'm hard to say. But here's the good thing about that is you guys can now go to CallywoodMusic.com and click on the live schedule button, and you'll see our whole lineup of shows. And soon to come, everybody will have their own bio and page. Like you can go on there right now. You can click on the podcast and you'll see Tigmatic's bio. You can see his social media links. So that's what I'm working on right now. And but we have a whole lineup of shows. So that's our Wednesday shows. We have a good Thursday show called the New West Connection, which is amazing. Talk with indie artists. We also have my boy AG from the 303. He's an artist and one of my friends and the creator of Fam Bam, which created and did the rave on Friday. He does 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Then Fridays, we got my boy DJ Cons, who's my co-host. He does Underground on Fridays. And then Saturdays, we have a dude out of LA. His name is OAM, and he is a EDM kind of house DJ that he puts on a show. And then we have another EDM show by Jonathan from Utah. And then Sundays we have Slow Down Sundays with DJ Nish. So it's all about old school kind of R&B feel. Think R-dub kind of flow. So yeah, I think I got everybody there. I think I missed a couple, but the full lineup, CallywoodMusic.com, click on the live schedule button. And soon, hopefully by the end of July, you'll be able to see everybody's bios and the links to their platforms and social media. It's just it's slow going. You know why? Because we wear many hats. We do a lot of work. So
that's right.
You know, we're busy. We're busy people.
We
do. So thankful. Thank you I want to thank all the creatives that have come on board and doing their thing. Like I said, we have a lot of amazing creatives all over the nation, and I'm looking for more to hopefully get involved here soon, like yourself. But keep doing what y'all doing, man. It is amazing, and it's needed. That's the thing. That's the big thing. Why do I do what I do? Because I believe it's needed. I think trying to set it off for all the independent artists out there that.
Hey man, listen, I thank you. Like I said, this is an amazing platform to be on. I enjoy being on this platform. I enjoy watching the other content, you know, and I'm gonna share a little something. When I'm on live, I'm actually watching y'all live before I go on, and then I see, I just go on there real quick. Just to look at the show, just to give it some views on that. But yeah, I show people, everything all the time. I'm sending messages. Go to Collywood. It's not just my show there. There's other shows there.
There's other shows.
Check
I appreciate
them out.
that.
And it's all about teamwork, man. I truly believe in what's going on here and what we're doing. So, it's definitely dope. And this is a dope platform. So y'all go on CallywoodMusic.com. Check it out. Hollywood Radio X. Hollywood Radio.
Yeah, let me break it down real quick for him. Yeah, Callywood Radio, that's our flagship station. Of course, that's all about independent music. Callywood Music or CallywoodRadio.com, where you can check that out. A lot of amazing independent artists on there from all over the world. You can see and hear and check them out. Callywood Radio X is more of our mainstream station. It's my ASCAP license station, and it's I'm an old school hip hop head, of course, growing up in the 80s, right? The birth of hip hop, I was around for that. So you'll find a heavy dose of old school hip hop and R&B on there, but a little bit of everything. Some of my influences, of course, I said earlier, my real dad, my stepdad, my mom, my cousins, most definitely, but friends of mine, again, growing up in the white suburbs, I had a lot of friends who listened to different music, everything from Metallica to punk back in the days, some Skinny Puppy, some Violent Femmes, some Eric's Bedroom, Yaz, some really good stuff from the late 80s in that genre. Of course, alternative rock. I'm huge an alternative rock fan, and old school rock, of course. Rock of the 80s, hair bands, but definitely a lot of alternative rock of the 90s. I dig, and so yeah, it's not just old school hip hop on there. There's a little bit of everything that I was been influenced over my 52 years on this rock. So thank you to a lot of friends that got me outside the 80s hip hop box, right? Listening to music while cruising around in their cars. I love Bob Marley. I love UB40. I love George Michaels and Wham. I'm a huge Wham fan. People don't know that, but
yeah,
Wham. So where did I learn all that? From friends, from my white friends living in the suburbs.
Yo, I was on there the other day and some Cardi B was playing, and some Mace was playing. Some old Bad Boy was on there.
Old Bad Boys and Mace on there. You'll find that. Shoot, you'll find some neo soul on there. What's up with Michelle and Dege Ocello? What you guys know about that? Huh?
Yeah, so it's something for everybody, yo.
Yeah, there really is. I think I'm a music connoisseur. So of course, a lot of hip hop. I ain't gonna lie, because that's my go-to. But a little bit of everything. Some rockabilly, what you all know, huh? What you guys know about that? What y'all know? What y'all know about Reverend Horton Heat, huh? What you know about that?
All right, so here's my last two questions. I have two more questions. Here's the first one. And this is, you watch the show, so this the last question I really ask everybody. So If it's one thing life has taught you, what is that and why?
Man, if there's anything life has taught me is tomorrow is another day, and it can be better. It might be worse, but it's a new day to start over. Like I said, at an early age, we didn't really get all the way into mental health, but as a youngster, teen, most definitely, and I think most teens felt this way, like every little thing was the end of the world kind of thing. You know what I mean? So when things add up and build up, it's like, it's hard, especially when you do suffer from depression and possibly ADHD, to keep focused and what have you. So tomorrow's another day, and tomorrow needs you. So that is it. We all go through it. Life be life, and for sure, especially in today's world, there's so much tumultuous crap going on that it's hard to keep positive sometimes. But with that said, I'll say it again, tomorrow needs you, needs all of us. So please check yourself, and when it comes to that, and your mental health. I wish we got more on that, but
we was having so much of a conversation. I still got plenty of questions. I mean, if you want to keep going, we can.
We'll save it for round two. We'll save this for part two. But
all right, here's my last question. Who do you lean on for support when you're struggling mentally?
To family. Starts with family. You got to be able to have that good support system. And if it's not family, find friends. If it's not friends, there's a lot of resources out there. But me, definitely my wife. Where are we at now? 27. We'll be 27 years in September, married.
Oh man, that's dope.
Together for 32. So she was 18, I was 19 when we first started dating. So that's my rock. That's my ride or die. That's my best friend. So, she can read me before I read myself. She knows when I'm in, what kind of mood I'm feeling, if I'm in my feelings, that kind of thing. So her, definitely my kids, my twins, they are everything. And although they are older, they're about to turn 20 here in October, they still are, what they are, the why. Everybody should have a why. So if you were to ask me, hey Cal, why do you do what you do? The why is for them. I do what I do for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's my support system. Of course, we talk about this a lot on New Music Mondays, because we do a little New Music Monday mental health minute. Check on your people, number one, but have people that you can talk to that won't judge you. You know what I mean? Like, you got to have that if you were expressing, like we said earlier, especially people of color, especially males, period.
Yes, we go through it.
We go through it just like everybody else. And there is a fine line. There's a fine line of whining and really just needing to talk, right? And don't be complaining and bitching is one thing. But if you're really feeling something, feeling a certain way, negativity and depression and hopelessness, that's a different story than being a little bitch. You know what I mean?
Even though I'm gonna tell you, you're cursing, and I don't curse.
I'm sorry. Not bad. That's the only way I can put it, though. But you got to be able to have somebody to talk to that will positively reinforce and listen to you without judgment. That's the hard part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like finding that support system. And if it's not a family member, if it's not a friend, like I said, a therapist, there are plenty of people to talk to. So find your support system, and find the positive way to cope with your mental health and depression. Whether you talk to a doc and it's meds, cannabis is amazing. It's like, how do you say them? Mushrooms? I don't know the term for it, but
psychedelics.
Not psychedelics, but there's a psyllium, something like that. Psyllium. There's a way to say it, but that just got legalized. That just got legalized out here in Colorado last year. So, that's doing wonders for people medicinally wise. So find what works for you positively. Alcohol, definitely probably not the thing. And believe me, I went down that road of trying to self-medicate with alcohol, and that's not it. So you got to find what's good. So me personally, if you want to know what I do, I got to get to the gym at least 2-3 times a week. At least 3 times a week. That is my happy go-to place. That's my place where I can reset. Just me. I don't work out with a trainer or anything. I just go and do me. I'll do cardio. I do weights, and then I play about a half hour, 45 minutes of basketball. And
I'll cook you.
That's my I might only be 5'5", but you can't hang with me. So that, and then tooling around in my yard. Those are my go-to things. We have
That's what's up.
Tool around my yard, and do mow and get it going. I got, nobody can mess with. I'm Dr. Green Thumb. You can't mess with my yard. I'll take a picture and send it to y'all because my grass stay green. So have something that you can gravitate to do positive that just it's therapeutic for you. Artists, I talked to a lot of artists on our show, music is that thing for them, but they have 100 things: cooking, baking, sewing, dancing, yoga. I mean, there's so many good things out there for you that can take your mind out of that bad place. So find what works for you.
Yeah, man. I want to thank you for coming on, man. Any special shout outs you want to give before we get off?
Yeah, man.
And before we get off, don't hang up. Stay on. I'm going to end it, but you stay on.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
Definitely got to shout out the fam, the wifey, the kids, Jaden, Sydney, my wife, Tamara, kind of them, all the rest of my family, the support system. Of course, the in-laws, my brother, my sister, all the cousins, everybody that we hang out with. We'll be seeing this Friday, of course. So definitely shout out to them. And the biggest shout out is to everybody who's doing something they're passionate about. I want to shout you guys out because I know it's not easy all of the time. And, just keep going. Just keep doing what you're doing. One foot in front of the other. And if you work hard, you'll see the fruits of your labor. I'm not going to say you'll get everything you want, but you will definitely see a positive outcome from it. Here's the thing: is anybody know what success is? Definition of success, not really definition, but I learned this in my acting days from a casting director. Success is not luck, like you just, oh man, I got lucky. No, success is preparation meeting opportunity. Preparation meeting opportunity. So Tigmatic is successful in being on Callywood because he saw an opportunity and he is prepared. He does an amazing show. He had it all ready to go, is all ready to rock, sending me episodes that are already in the pipeline. That is a example of success right there. Dude was prepared, had stuff all ready to go, saw an opportunity, he took it, and here we are. So that's a win. You know what I mean? Yeah. Are we making millions? No. But are we moving forward? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So
yeah, man, that's a fact.
That's my Jerry Springer
thank
moment.
You for coming on. Thank you for coming on. We was moving and booming as always. And you're going to be on Stirring the Pot. We're going to chop it up on Stirring the Pot too. With the video countdown, we can have some fun and let our hair down.
Let our hair down. Yeah. I spent a lot of time on it today for this interview.
We can let our hair down, nice and shiny.
Yeah, man. Definitely. I would love to do that. And like I told you and all the show hosts, I'm going to get you guys interviews too. So be on the lookout for Tigmatic. We're going to swap it. We're going to go 180 on it. And I'm going to interview him on for Callywood Radio. So we're still getting there. I'm just, I'd hope to get everybody in last month, but events kicked in. Our event month is June, July, and August, which we're just ridiculously busy. So we will definitely get that interview in too, sir. It's just things moving a little slower than that. But thank you. And I'm looking forward to, definitely stirring the pot too.
Hey, yeah, we're going to get it in. We definitely going to get it in. Stay on. And I'm going to close out the show.
All right.
Right?
Will do.
All right. Folks, I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of The Pot. You know, like Kyle said, we talked mental health, but we didn't get to dive deep like I usually do. And that's because the conversation was so good, folks. So next time he comes on, we will dive a bit deeper and talk about it a whole lot more. Once again, this episode was brought to you by CallywoodTV, Hollywood Radio, Hollywood Music, Dollar Radio, Going In Radio, and the Pot Podcast with Tigmatic. Once again, it's your boy signing off. Peace.
Everybody go tapping with the pot with Tigmatic.
Y'all tune into the Pop Podcast. And guess what? There's an episode of me on
And you are tuned into the Pot Podcast.
With the Pot Podcast with my boy Tigmatic. You hear me? It's going down.
To follow the Pot Podcast with Tigmatic.
That's that number one.
That's that number one.